Good morning, everyone. As wildlife photographers, we constantly hear that whenever possible, you should photograph an animal at eye level. In fact, this is a common theme in many of my tip videos here on this channel, but there are definitely times when you want to ignore this guideline altogether and your photos will turn out much better as a result. So in today's video, I wanted to take you along with me on some real-life examples of when you should break the rules of wildlife photography and not photograph an animal at its eye level. Let's get into it. As with any wildlife photography, most of this is going to come down to you using your best judgment and creativity to get the best results possible. I'm going to share with you some scenarios today and when I chose not to photograph an animal on eye level, but I'm only one person. I would love to hear from you. What are some scenarios when you would choose not to photograph an animal on eye level and why? Let me know in the comments below. I love learning together here. If you've followed my videos here on YouTube for a while now, you know how much I love capturing a good silhouette. There are times when things line up just perfectly and you can capture a silhouette with little or no added effort on your part. But I found that most of the time this isn't the case and you'll need to reposition yourself, oftentimes off of eye level, to get the best silhouette images possible. Let's look at some examples. Each year while photographing bears in Alaska, I'm always on the lookout for good silhouette opportunities as I think they make wonderful subjects for this type of photo. The key to the best silhouettes, in my opinion, is being able to isolate your subject from the surrounding landscape and other obstacles. While photographing the bears out here, I found that many times the landscape breaks up the silhouette because I'm shooting at eye level, especially when they're in the river in front of me. So instead of remaining at eye level, I like to get just a little bit higher than the bears and shoot down on them to isolate their outline completely against the water, yielding a better silhouette. This doesn't just apply to bears, but any subject. Last summer, while photographing mountain goats, I had a similar situation where a mountain goat had walked up on a ridgeline. Had I stayed with it and shot at eye level, I would have had mountains in the background and the goat would have blended right into them. Instead, I got quite a bit lower and shot up at the goat, making sure it was framed clearly against the sky and not the mountains. One of my favorite reasons to not shoot at eye level is to help the subject that you're photographing look more formidable in your images. Next time you're out with your camera and you have an animal fairly close to you, zoom out and lay your camera on the ground or as close to it as you can get. As you photograph your subject in this way, with your camera essentially looking up at it, your subject will look much larger, which can also help it look more intimidating to the viewer. Even small animals will look larger and the point of view can be something that you just don't see every day. I've started photographing a lot of wildlife this way and I found that I really like the resulting images. This may simply be a personal preference of mine, but I do feel like it adds a perspective that you don't see all the time. Since we're talking about perspectives, you can do just the opposite as well. Some subjects can be difficult to photograph at eye level because much of them is obscured or hidden. By shooting down on them to some degree, you may be able to reveal more of their body, adding to your image. Much of wildlife photography is about storytelling and giving the viewer a broader sense of what's going on with and around your subject. This can be tricky to do with a single image, but in some cases I found that it gets much easier when you choose to photograph your subject or subjects from above or below eye level. For instance, this bighorn sheep photographed from below can be more easily portrayed as being somewhere high up, which perfectly encapsulates its natural home. Similarly, shooting up at this leopard in a tree with the clouds behind helps the viewer to know that it's high up without having to show the entire tree to do so. And by shooting down on this coyote, you can also see the bison far below, telling a more complete story. Safety to the animal that you're photographing, to yourself and to your gear should always be something that you consider when choosing where to position yourself when photographing wildlife. I would have loved to get a little lower to eye level while shooting this alligator, but that would mean crouching down at the water's edge to do so. For once in my life, common sense overpowered my desire for a photo and I chose not to shoot it at eye level. Join me on an amazing safari in Kenya's Masai Mara. incredible wildlife encounters, a comfortable safari camp with all the accommodations, enough room in the vehicles for yourself, your gear, and uninterrupted views from both sides, and the best guides out there. Our full days in the field lead to encounter after encounter, starting before the sun has risen and ending after it's set. Spots are available for later this year and early next year, so hit the link in the description below to get more details and to sign up now. Let's get back into it. I love incorporating reflections into my photos whenever possible. Reflections are usually at their best when photographed as close to the water as possible. Depending on the size of your subject, this might mean that you need to shoot above or below eye level to achieve the best reflection. Another thing to consider is the framing of the reflection, or framing in general. Had I photographed these goats right at eye level, I'd have cut off more of the kid's reflection by doing so. By getting just a tad higher, I was able to get the majority of the reflection while not greatly compromising its quality. I found that one of the quickest ways to improve your wildlife photography is by focusing more on your backgrounds. Backgrounds can make or break an image, and there have been countless times when I stopped photographing an animal at eye level in order to incorporate a better background into the image instead. While photographing greater sage grouse this spring, I found myself shooting as low as I could at some grouse on a small rise in front of me. This put me below eye level, but it allowed me to get a cleaner background with some outstanding colors. I did the same thing later that day with the short-eared owl, once again repositioning myself below eye level to add more colors into the background. Had I shot this great gray owl on eye level, I would not have been able to get the subtle sunbursts peeking through the trees in the background, and had I stayed on eye level while photographing this muskox rather than get above it and shoot down, I would not have been able to include many of the amazing colors behind it into the photo. So when you're composing an image, weigh the pros and cons of not shooting at eye level to incorporate a potentially better background into your image. This can be a fine balancing act, but put your creativity to work and you'll come away with some great results. And if you don't like those results, well, try something different the next time. Of course, we don't always have the choice as wildlife photographers whether or not to shoot on the animal's eye level. Many times we can't reposition ourselves, or we just don't have the time to before the animal moves or disappears altogether. Many times while photographing birds in flight, they're well above us in the air and we simply can't get on eye level. In these cases, I make the most of what I have to work with, all the while looking the landscape over for different vantage points where I may be able to get on eye level based on their behavior and patterns. I came across this badger while out exploring the other day and knew that if I moved to reposition myself, he'd quickly retreat into his burrow, and if I crouched down to get on eye level, the cluttered vegetation in front would obscure my view. So I shot slightly down on him and the resulting images were just fine. As you can see, it's not as simple as just shoot on eye level all the time. There is so much more that should be going into each photo that we take. They should be well thought out, even if you only have a couple of seconds to do so. Check this video out right here if you want to see a real-life example of what I think about and how I react as I photograph wildlife in the field for best results. As always, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much for following along. We'll see you next time.